Okay. First item on the agenda is public comments. The board will receive public comments for up to 3 minutes concerning items on this agenda, as well as communication, petitions, reports from citizens, or representatives of other public agencies. When I call your name, I ask that you come up. We have a timer set for 3 minutes. It will beep quietly. We ask that you please wrap up your comments at that point. I have one name on the list. Gail, is it Rano? Rano. Okay. All right.
Good name. My name is Gail Rano. I live at 345 Webster. Both of our daughters went to school in 205, and they're gone, but my wife and I are still here, and we're very blessed. Just want to read you, my focus is on sustainability, and I just have a short paper, only take 25, 30 minutes. Thank you for defining the district's sustainability vision to develop sustainability procedures to reduce the environmental impact of the schools and save money at a recent Finance Committee meeting. A major piece of the District 205 Future Focus Plan is the building of 2 new schools, Lincoln and Field. The current plan is for these schools to be LEED Silver certified. As I have highlighted in previous talks, there is a major transformation occurring in the commercial building industry. The motivation is to develop zero net energy buildings. I'll call them ZNE for short. A ZNE school is a building that uses as much energy as can be generated by renewable resources on the building. The questions that most likely concern you are, is ZNE more effective than LEED Silver, and can our budget afford it? I would like to share this experience that was presented at a seminar. A school district in Virginia decided several years ago to build all schools to the LEED Silver standard. Several schools were built to the standard, but none quite met their expectations. Before starting another school, they scanned the marketplace for alternatives and decided to evaluate the zero net energy methodology. After consulting with an architect and trade specialists, the school administrators became convinced that this was the way to go, but questioned how much it was going to cost. They already had a budget. The architect developed a first pass cost which compared favorably with the budget for the LEED Silver school. The new school, Discovery Elementary, was built, has exceeded expectations, and provides lower operational costs. Today, there are several ZNE schools under construction in that area alone and in other parts of the United States. The next question, can the entire district achieve ZNE status? Rocky Mountain Institute, an organization focused on climate change, energy efficiency, and renewables, worked with the Boulder School District, consisting of 50 schools, to develop an energy management plan to achieve zero net energy. The plan looks to achieve 80% ZNE by 2050, with most changes being done as mechanical systems reach their end of life. The underlying strategy of all this work is to build more efficient buildings and to power them exclusively using renewables, led primarily by electricity.
So the 3 minutes can you finish up?
Okay, we'll finish up quickly. Well, Tenet, it's been ZNE verified buildings use 60% less energy than comparable commercial buildings and 46% less energy than new buildings under the most stringent U.S.-based code in California. And there's a big push in the K-12 marketplace to adopt ZNE buildings. So to summarize, they can be built with comparable costs, provide lower operational savings, due to reduced energy, and significantly reduce the environmental impact of schools. If White has not shared a cost comparison between lead silver and Z&E, I strongly encourage you to request this information. As I expect these costs to be comparable, Lincoln and Field schools will demonstrate how the
Thank you.
District 205 can meet their sustainability plan.
Okay, thank you.
Have a nice day.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, so we will move on the agenda. We have approval of board meeting minutes, approval of December 17th, 2019 meeting minutes, and January 14, 2020 meeting minutes. Are there any changes? Okay, they stand as presented. Approval of December 17th, 2019, and January 14th, 2020 closed session minutes. Those stand as presented. All right, next we have the superintendent's agenda, the consent agenda. And just as a reminder, a consent agenda, tends to be things that we have already discussed in previous meetings. So for instance, we discussed our maintenance for the upcoming year in our December meeting. And the donations were addressed as well at one of our November meetings. So if that's where we've had the discussion. So I was just giving a little reminder to the community as to why we have things on consent. And then to the board, is there anyone that would like to pull an item on the consent agenda? Okay, then a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the superintendent's consent agenda items A through F.
I second.
Okay, call the vote, please.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hostler?
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio?
Yes, 5 ayes, no nays, 2 absent, motion passes. All right, next on the agenda is superintendent's agenda, action items. Item A, approval of resolution of the Board of Education transferring money from the operations and maintenance funds to the debt service fund.
So this is a regular occurrence, but if you have questions and would like Chris to clarify, we can do so after the motion is made.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution to transfer money from the operations and maintenance funds to the debt service fund for the purpose of payment of debt certificates for fiscal year 2020.
I'll second.
Any questions, discussions? Maybe Chris, you could just give why we do this.
This is in accordance with the Illinois Program Accounting Manual. The debt must be paid out of the debt service fund. These are debt certificates that were originally purchased for this building and the stadium. And if approved tonight, we will make that transfer at the end of the month, this month. And it's right in line with the budget and planned for.
All right, any questions? Okay, call the vote, please.
Mrs. Hostler?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio?
Yes, 5 ayes, no nays, 2 absent, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is approval of contract for employee benefits consultant and broker services.
So once again, this is a helpful service that we utilize as we look at our insurance rates annually. And Chris can explain to you any specific questions you have about this motion and this recommendation during the discussion portion.
Motion?
I move the Board of Education approve a 3-year contract with Group Alternatives from March 1st, 2020 through February 28th, 2023 at $68,160 annually with an option to renew at the same rate for an additional 2 years.
I'll second.
Questions, Discussion.
Can we just get a brief explanation on what this will do for us?
So the contract was up with the previous broker and decided we wanted a fresh perspective in order to engage the insurance committee in discussion. Insurance is a changing market. Obviously, the trend is 12% for prescription and can be 6 or 7% for medical, and our revenues are limited to CPIs plus new construction. So it is an important area, and we interviewed this company along with a few other companies 3 years ago. I was intrigued by them at the time, but we went and hired our previous broker at that time, but I was still interested. I've seen them speak at a lot of workshops. They're very proactive. They have a robust data analytics system that they use in order to analyze your claims and your wellness screenings to come up with ideas to discuss in the insurance committee. We interviewed them with the 3 union groups and Jim Collins as well, and we were all very impressed with what they have to offer. And this contract is for the exact same amount we were paying the last broker, so it's 6 consecutive years paying the exact same amount for this service.
Thank you.
I don't have a question as much as, thank you for doing this and involving the union representatives with the insurance company and really looking at, how do we offer the best benefits given the cost containment that we have, and, involving everyone in the party, and then, keeping up with what did we like last time instead of going through the process. I know that we need to do that. In this particular case, we're really vetting it, and there's no additional cost. So I really like the write-up, which was great for everyone to see in the board docs. But so I thank you for the work and working with everyone so that everyone's involved and agreeing with this is the approach to take.
Okay, nothing else? Call the vote, please.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mrs. Hostler?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio?
Yes, 5 ayes, no nays, 2 absent, motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of Assistant Superintendent of Student Services.
Okay, so thank you. Here tonight is Dr. Kevin Rubenstein. Kevin is currently the Director of Student Services, Technology, and Assessment at Lake Bluff. And that eclectic background is kind of interesting based on the times we're in right now. And I think that the work of the district, I think he lends some very unique perspectives to advancing our work. Dr. Volpe, as you all know, has served the district on an interim basis and has helped us a great deal with implementing the special ed program analysis and other areas of our work with our new reorganization and student services work. So we're certainly very grateful for his service, and he will finish out the rest of the year in that capacity. Kevin also is president of a state association, has building level leadership experience, unit district experience, and so the committees were very supportive of his candidacy, and I am most happy to recommend him as the candidate and would ask for your approval.
Okay, motion.
That the Board of Education approve Dr. Kevin Rubenstein as the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services with a base salary of $160,770 and a start date of July 1st, 2020.
I'll second.
Any comments, questions? Go ahead.
I just wanted to second Dave's motion and really thank Dr. Mike Volpe for stepping in and on this interim and really giving it his all. We appreciate that, especially when you could have been sitting back being retired. So we recognize that. So just wanted to say thank you.
I just wanted to highlight just the vast background that Kevin brings to the table, and we wanted more time to talk to him because of it. I mean, I just think it's great. You have experience at all the levels, all the different areas of student services, unique approach to working with all the classroom teachers, really looking at it as being seamless education. So we're really looking forward to having you here.
Anything else? Okay, call the vote, please.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hostler?
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio?
Yes, 5 ayes, no nays, 2 absent. Motion passes. Welcome to District 205. We're really glad you're here. All right, next is Superintendent's communication. We have a lot of updates that are becoming kind of a regular part of our meetings, and the first one is the facilities update.
So this was not in your packet because both of these meetings occurred yesterday. So they were 2 pretty important meetings, and they occurred yesterday past the deadline for the board packet. And I worked on the getting some information on paper today. So the Facilities Planning Committee, we expect that we'll be able to break ground late March at Edison. And so there will be some initial work that begins immediately at Edison, and Brian and architects and construction managers in our facilities department will be communicating directly with those principals, and the principals will be working with their faculties. So that's kind of ongoing. Well, the main crux of yesterday's meeting was to establish a plan to move forward with the next portions of the project. And so we established 5 subcommittees: transportation, staffing, instructional planning, culture and communities, logistics and planning. We have a chair of each committee, and we established a purpose of each committee. And some of the membership will be stable, some of it will fluctuate depending on the nature of work that needs to be done at a given time. But all of those committees will be expected. Dave Smith is creating a shared portal that we will all be able to access information. And all of the committees will be expected to update Bev regularly to make sure that our communications is flowing smoothly internally and externally. So the Transportation Committee is pretty self-explanatory. There's going to be a lot of things that have to go on, busing students that have never been bused to the different school sites during the transition year. Staffing is going to be a little bit of a challenge. You're going to have to follow the contract. You're going to have a lot of movement. You're going to have a lot of people that want to go back to the buildings they came from. There may not always be equivalent spots. You're going to have to plan for different things that we haven't had a plan for before with all the special and student support services. So as you see, most of these committees will say that there's a designated, that whoever the appropriate principals are on there. So there may be times that you're working with Edison and Lincoln principals, et cetera. There may be times you're working with Brian, but all of those principals are involved in these in this work. And then each of the committees, we're expecting that depending on the nature of the committee, there may be teachers, there may be parents, there may be other people that get called in. Tech will play a big role in some of these. So there'll be a lot of different things going on. And then the instructional planning has to do more with the things specific to the school day, bell schedules, the student class assignments, the databases like the Power School, making sure kids show up in the right places, supervision, playground, lunch protocols, all that kind of stuff. There's a separate one, a logistics and planning, that has to do with school-related issues, but ones that are more related to the actual moving of equipment, staging equipment, making sure that people know which parts of the buildings they can use or not use at different times. So those deal more with infrastructure-related types of things, and the other committee more with things that are more related to instructional programming. And then the final community culture, the final committee, culture and communities, has to do with bringing the school communities together, making people feel welcome, embracing each other's traditions, and working through some of those things that will occur during the year when students and families are not at their permanent school site. So the initial meeting for the future work will occur next fall, but as I said, there is work that's ongoing. And one thing that is unique that will start this year is the school planning teams at Field and Lincoln, just like we did with Edison when you would get reports on the planning process. There'll be school-level teams at those two schools, and White and ICI will initiate meetings beginning in February because they want to coordinate the planning of the new schools. They think that they'll be able to get some better consistencies and some better efficiencies by beginning that design process, even though they're not building the buildings in the same year. So they're going to start that planning in February. So that is an update on facilities. I can take questions, certainly, if you have them.
I do. I wondered, where would it fall in these subcommittees where we're preparing the staff for the new look and feel and use of facilities and technologies and classrooms and the different spaces and everything that's new? How do we help build that awareness and transition and identify what makes that really smooth so that it's not new in a way to them when they go into the school?
A couple different things. So one, they're involved, so they have their core teams, but they also, the student services people, the special area teachers are involved early on in helping plan the spaces. And so some of the things the architects don't think about, storage always comes up, but how they manage classrooms at different grade levels or whatever, they all have input on the front end. Teachers have been given, within certain parameters, some input in selecting their furniture. There's also, as it relates to the transition phase, there'll be teachers on all of those committees. So, Edison is tricky because they're moving kids from one part of the building to another part of the building and things like that that are occurring during different stages of that construction. Teachers they'll be involved in all of those discussions. So how to get kids in and out of the lunchroom, all those kinds of things. They're involved on the front end of all of the discussions. As it relates to the actual opening up the building and making sure that they understand how to use the new spaces, how to use possibly new technology. That's a professional learning piece. And some of those things, for example, this year, we tried to structure through our learning strands. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like next year. That's still in the planning phases. But we are going to heighten the focus on leveraging technology in classrooms. And we do have some ideas about what we may need to do there. And we do have some pilots going on currently right now with display technology to try to figure out what we think best serves the needs as we move toward equipping these new buildings and rehabbing our existing buildings. Teachers are involved in piloting and selecting those, and when those get selected, there'll be professional learning around how to use that equipment. So, I mean, I'm giving you some general statements. If you have like a specific, concern about some aspect of things, I could try to give you a more specific answer.
Well, I just like the way that you have 4 subcommittees that have a clear focus, and I think that this should be highlighted somewhere as a clear focus and not, oh, it's going to happen because we think it's happening, versus it is a responsibility of someone to make sure that that's happening. I think that it is an area that's very different for us because we're relatively new to implementing technology across. It's okay for the people who are involved with it initially, they know that, but what we're asking for is it to be integrated and organically grown for everyone in the particular buildings. It's a great way for us to really watch the process and then understand how do we build it within the organization from here on out. It's going to touch everyone, so it might fall through, and so I think that it's important that we designate it somewhere,
So
is all I'm saying.
Yeah, so my initial thought is that in the instructional planning, and we expect tech to be involved in that. And so what I can do is I can specifically delineate professional learning support in the purpose of the committee. And the new Executive Director of Technology does have some expertise in that area and has been involved in some construction projects in his current district. So I will reiterate to him the importance of that. And I think learning and teaching and all of us share the fact that there's room for growth generally, whether we had construction or not.
Sure. Yep.
But I will specifically include that in the purpose of that instructional planning committee.
Great, thank you.
And by the way, these are just examples, because once they start doing this list is going to grow exponentially, but it gives you an idea of the types of things we're anticipating, so.
I think it's a good start. I like having someone, chairing that's going to look out for each of those topics, because there's going to be a lot going on. All right, next is the update on Thrive D205.
And I would just say, and I will move on, but in a previous life, when we had a relatively new, it was a new school. It wasn't construction to this extent, but it was a new school. Did involve some movement of students, did involve some boundaries, did involve some similar things. And the subcommittee's process worked pretty well. So I have some experience with that, and I do think that this process will work. So Thrive D205, we also met yesterday, and we have 4 subcommittees that reported out. The first talked about a draft homework policy and the WE survey results. So we're going to bring the WE survey results to the full board after our buildings have a chance to work with their school teams over the next couple weeks, and then we'll share those with you. But we wanted to share them with the committee because we are using those results to start some of the planning for the focus groups. And then the draft homework policy is something that we're going to share with you on February 11th, but we got some additional feedback from the members of that committee about some things that they think we should think about as we move through trying to develop a final policy. The Student Services Subcommittee primarily focused on the work of how we're integrating the district MTSS committee with the student services people that are on Thrive D205 so that we can have some consistency and keep communication going. And Scott gave that report. He will give you a report again on February 11th regarding MTSS. The thought exchange window closed yesterday. Community engagement. Thought exchange window closed yesterday, so we're going to process those results, begin a process of sharing those out. They also, the Youth Commission event is Thursday, the 30th, so we reminded everybody of that. That topic of that is legalized marijuana. We are planning for the spring focus groups, so there's work going on there. The Start Time Subcommittee shared out some of the draft schedules. We'll be getting feedback from the community and from our teachers and employees on those in a format that we haven't completely determined yet, but we're still working through some of the nuances of how we want to bring that forward based on the thought exchange survey results that we get. And then also, we're waiting for some information on busing. We're having a little bit of a difficult time pinning down some specifics on busing, on the busing implications of these draft schedules. And there are some concerns that we have about the logistics and the magnitude of all of the potential busing changes we could be dealing with the construction project, the expansion of dual language, and the changing start times. So we have to be very careful about our planning because there's a lot going on besides just the start times. So subcommittees are going to continue to meet. The full committee will meet again at least once before spring break, depending on how the subcommittee work goes. And that's what I have on Thrive D205.
I think that's it.
Okay.
All right, so next is what?
So freedom of information, we had 9. 1 requesting specific disciplinary information, which was denied. 1 requesting specific communications, which was granted. 1 requesting specific agreements, which was granted. 1 requesting specific records, which was granted. 2 requesting specific board minutes, which were granted. 2 requesting specific billing information, 1 which was granted and 1 which was denied. 1 requesting specific bid information, which was granted.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Tweet of the Week.
Good evening to our board and to everyone. First of all, I want to acknowledge that we did cross a milestone for the year. If you had not checked, we have all made it through the 100th day of school as of yesterday. So very happy. Many of our students got to celebrate. They dressed up as what they think are seniors or old people, and I think one of them might have looked like me. But it was a very exciting time to know that we have really, I mean, what I remember is we just opened school in August, but really we have come a long way for the school year, so we're very proud to be at this point. Tonight, we are celebrating Tweet of the Week, and that goes to Ms. Darley's classroom at Jefferson Elementary. What you see on the screen behind you may look like just students going around, but one of the PLC questions, I believe, and I'm certainly not an expert in it, is how do we know that our students are learning? And to take a look at this particular picture, it's talking about peer-to-peer observation, certainly for the teacher, so that she can develop, but also watching the students teach each other and go over what they have learned. At the end of the day, in a math workshop or English workshop, however we're teaching, the whole goal is to make sure that our students are learning. And when they can teach each other, you certainly know that that is occurring. So that is what Ms. Darley has said. We do a lot of fantastic things, but at the end of the day, can they go out and can they explain it to someone else? Can they use what they know? That is the goal, always. So congratulations to Ms. Darley's classroom at Jefferson. Happy 100th day of school to everyone, and let's keep those tweets coming.
Okay, thank you, Bev. Okay, board communications. Board members will present, report, or share information with the full board. Anybody got anything? All right, so we have in February is, we had kind of laid out that we'd have another committee of the whole learning type meeting, so that will be our next meeting. I believe we may have to do a little bit of business first, and then we are discussing circling back with standards-based reporting, kind of circling back and getting a little more, almost like a little bit of professional development, a little more learning for us and a time to ask some questions. And an update well, I don't know if it's really an update, explanation maybe, is that better, of MTSS from Mr. Grenz. And is the homework policy, is that on February 11th?
We agreed if we got to it, it's on February 11th.
Okay, so maybe, depending on time, right? So those are the two.
Well, also the special ed program analysis.
Wow. On February 11th?
Mm-hmm.
That's too much. Well, okay. Well, to be determined, but those are the three things. But I know we are going to circle back about standards-based reporting now that the first semester's over and got some feedback and so on. So anything else about that? Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? When we talk about homework, are we going to talk about district-wide? Okay.
Yes. Yes. So the existing and proposed policy and handbook information focuses mainly on 612, but there is an element of K-5 in that as well. It's small, admittedly, but it might lead to that topic.
Okay, so we'll circle back to try not to have us be here till 11 o'clock that night, if possible. All right, anything else? Okay, so we have 3 scheduled upcoming meetings. Monday, February 3rd, 2020 is the Finance Committee meeting at 5:30 here in District 205 Center. Tuesday, February 11th, 2020, regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting here in District 205 Center at 7 o'clock. And Tuesday, February 25th, 2020, regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting here in District 205 Center at 7 o'clock. If there are no other comments or questions, then, hang on.
Sorry, isn't the committee of the whole meeting starting at 6 p.m. or no? Like last time?
Yes.
Okay, so
Or
we'll
is that wrong on the agenda?
It is wrong, yeah.
Okay.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll get it fixed. 6 o'clock.
You don't want to come at 7 because then you'll miss the party, the standards-based party.
Nikki's right.
That way we can have more on the agenda, right? Because we got an extra hour in there. So, okay, so 6 o'clock on Tuesday, February 11th, here in District 205 Center. Okay, anything else? That was a good catch. Thank you for that. Okay, then I will call the meeting adjourned.